Hello everyone and welcome back to our Portuguese homestead. Today I just want to sit down with you and talk about a question that I get asked a lot, and it's quite understandable, namely, how do you make money? How do you start something like this? How much money do you need to begin with? So I have a couple things that I want to talk to you about, but first of all, a little side note. I'm not a financial expert. I did not study for this. I can only share our experience and from what I see around us, and maybe give you some tips and things that you want to think about. First of all, I want to talk to you about startup costs. It can be quite hard to actually figure out how much money do you need to start a project like this. So I want to give you a couple headers on what you need to think about. First of all, you want to buy land, or do you want to buy a home on it? And you need to start researching in what area of the country, the continent, whatever, where do you want to buy. Things you might want to consider are how far away do you want to be from a major city, what kind of things are around, what kind of land do you want to buy, or do you want a home or with just a small piece of land. All those things have an influence on how much it would cost. We are far away from most major cities, which usually makes it fairly cheap, but we are close enough to a small provincial city that we feel comfortable that we can get everything that we need. You also might want to think about, do you want there to be some good agricultural land on it? Do you want a specific type of tree that maybe you can harvest from? All those things cost money, sadly. So if you get a picture of what you actually want, you can then start looking at what realistically should your budget be, and then you could either start saving if it's not so much that you need, or you can think about, do you want to get out of mortgage. For us, a mortgage was not really an option. We want to keep our running costs as low as possible, so what we did is we saved up a bunch of money over the course of a couple of years, and we were so lucky to be able to do that. And then in combination with a small inheritance, we were able to buy the land and kind of get everything up and running. And then there are a couple extra things that you want to think about. You need to pay taxes, of course. So maybe you should look into what are the annual taxes on property, land, what are the taxes on buying land, and also you have to pay for notary, and if you have a small budget, it's really important to put that in your budget. And then also if you buy a home, maybe in combination with a mortgage, you really need to be very realistic about how much money you want to spend and can spend on a remodel. So in some areas it's actually required by law that you have professionals do your electricity and your plumbing and all that stuff. So, and then you need to look at, do you want to do building materials? Do you want to put on a tiny home, a yurt, anything like that? So really look realistically into what you need to spend on that, because it's a startup cost. It's something that you just have to do, and it's not really something that you can skimp on. And as you know from many a TV show about remodeling, building, it always takes more money than you think. To get the off-grid or land or small farm up and running as well, you need to look into, would you want to get a solar system, any other type of power, a generator, what are you going to do with water. And these are all kind of smaller costs that you might not think about, but I would say that really do a little bit of research on it, and set aside a couple grand if you can, of course, to pay for stuff like that, because you always need some random stuff that you just don't remember to put on the list. So be realistic and add a little more, because sadly everything is always more expensive than you think. You can also do a lot with free stuff, of course. As you would have seen, we do a lot with pallet wood and all that stuff, but it can be quite hard to find that here in the countryside of Portugal, much harder than in other parts of the world. So you now have your place set up, you've run through all your savings, and now you need to make money. It's good to have a little bit of a plan, an idea of what you might want to do. Most people who do this type of stuff, what I see around me, is they work for themselves. So depending on where you are, of course, it's not always realistic to think, oh, I'll just get a job and I can make some money. The Portuguese minimum wage is quite low, so it would be quite hard, even if you work full-time, to make a good chunk of money. And jobs are hard to get by, which is why a lot of people moved away, of course. What I would stress very much is a couple things, actually. So if you work for yourself, it's so important to have multiple income streams. And this is important because if one stream kind of dries down, then you always have something else that maybe you can expand on or build up to make more money from that. But if you just have one thing that you can do, and maybe you live in an area where that skill is not really needed, then what are you gonna do? So you need to be flexible as well in what you want to do. For example, you can have this idea of, oh, I'm gonna do some artsy things, I'm gonna teach some yoga, I'm gonna do all these things that I enjoy right now in the city, but is there a market for it in the area that you want to move to? Here in the area, there's so many yoga teachers. If you throw a cat, you'll hit a yoga teacher. So there's not really a market for it to begin with, and there is a lot of people who can actually do that. So you have to be flexible and think, okay, what else can I do? What skill can I learn that I might be able to sell? That I actually might be able to teach other people, and don't be so set in this is what I want to do, this is how I will make my money. So for us that means that a year ago we didn't expect to buy a digger, but we did. There is lots of work in the area and we could get the digger for a good price. So while it might not be the perfect job, it could be a very good income stream for us in the future, might we need it. But we are also working on you guys YouTube to build a platform and make money through YouTube. But then we can also find our people that want to maybe buy our olive oil, some of the products that we can make from the olive oil. And in that sense, the internet and social media is such a blessing, because then you can find your customer for your product if that customer is not around where you live. And olive oil is a great product because it keeps very well and you can make other things with it as well. We have some friends who do market gardening, which is very good, of course, and we buy stuff from them to support them. But here everyone has a garden, so they're successful because they sell in the city, they sell to restaurants. But if you think, oh, I'll just do a market garden and then I can go to the market and sell, everyone has a garden here. They don't really need the market so much to get their fresh produce. So be realistic, go to your area, see what people actually need, what skills are needed, and maybe teach yourself some of those skills. Oh, and a final note, some people would like to do tourism. Tourism takes a lot of initial startup costs as well, because then you either need to, if so many people are doing glamping now, you need to buy all those tents, you need to have a good place, you need to build a sanitary building, you need to do so much. And then the question is, will you even have customers? Do people even come to your region? It's not so simple as you just put up a couple tents and people will come. And finally, a big part for us when it comes to money is to also keep the costs very low. So for us that means that we are off-grid. We made the initial investment into a solar system, and we have the well for water and all that stuff. So we made the front up investments into those systems, and now they're set up and we don't really have to worry about it for the next couple of years, which is for us preferable, because then you don't have someone knocking on your door every month for some money, and then we don't have to make so much money every month just to keep afloat, and that gives us room to figure out what we actually want to do and how much money do we need to live on. Gardening is also part of that. If we don't have to buy any vegetables, that saves us money, of course. It does take a couple years to really grow enough to sustain yourself, and even then I think it would be quite hard to grow everything or trade everything that you need or that you want. So while it does massively reduce your costs, I don't think it will ever completely be gone. And when you're thinking about animals also, once again, I think the key phrase or the key word of this video is please be realistic. Some animals need a lot of stuff that you don't necessarily get from your land. So some animals can be quite expensive to keep. Horses would be one of them, plus they don't really give you anything back, except for maybe the ride. Chickens are a great option. They're cheap to buy, they're cheap to feed. You could start growing some of their feed. They can free range on your land, and then they give you eggs and maybe some meat in return. So that's really awesome. And then you don't have to worry about getting hay or whatever you need for bigger animals. So I hope these 3 main points were kind of helpful to you. Think about the startup costs, how are you going to make money, and how are you going to keep your costs low. To me, these are really the 3, well, in life, the 3 key things that you need to think about when it comes to money, but especially when you're starting your own business and you're starting your own farm, whatever. There's lots to think about. You have to be flexible, you have to be creative, and if you want to make it work, you can make it work. But if you live in the mindset of I'm just gonna get a job, I'm just gonna build a house and all will be good, I don't know. Think about it very well before you start anything where you need to really think on your feet and do a lot of things yourself. These are my tips from me to you. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys on Sunday.